The celebration of the Easter Triduum this year will undoubtedly be different amid the global spread of COVID-19, but there are several special events that may help to serve as a source of spiritual comfort during this time. Joining me now to talk more about that is Dr. Matthew Bunson, Executive Editor and Washington Bureau Chief of EWTN News. Matthew, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Good to be with you, especially under such unusual circumstances.
Absolutely. Well, we know the Holy Week is traditionally marked by very public ceremonies and processions around the world, but this year is clearly different. Can you speak about that?
Well, this is a Triduum unlike any, certainly in our lifetime. You'd have to go very far into the history of the church to encounter anything quite like this. We could argue that we have to go all the way back to the time of the Black Death to see anything like this. Certainly the time of the Spanish influenza. But for Catholics, this is a unique opportunity for us then to really concentrate on what the Triduum really is, the passion, death on the cross of our Lord, and then culminating with his resurrection. So events that surround it traditionally have assumed even more meaning, as we heard from Alan Holdren.
Despite the special nature of this year because of the pandemic, there are still opportunities for the faithful to celebrate, albeit new ways. Can you talk about that and also about the Shroud of Turin on Holy Saturday? Catholics around the world will have this incredible opportunity to pray before it virtually. And how exactly will that work, Matthew?
Well, that's right. So as Alan was reporting on Good Friday, we're going to have a unique procession, a unique moment of veneration of the crown of thorns that historically was kept in Notre Dame Cathedral. It was rescued miraculously by firefighters at the time that Notre Dame Cathedral actually caught on fire through a human chain that saved it. This is one of the great relics of historical Christendom. Brought supposedly from Constantinople to France and enshrined in the magnificent Sainte-Chapelle, which is one of those great churches in France, before being placed in Notre Dame. The opportunity to see that is unique in itself, especially given the circumstances of the fire last year. But then we have that opportunity to venerate the Shroud of Turin. Archbishop Cesare Nosiglia of Turin is going to have a special prayer service that will be streamed internationally. Both the Good Friday service and the Holy Saturday service from Turin are going to be broadcast by EWTN. So this is one of those rare opportunities that points to something even more significant, that this is a real chance for us to take stock of this Triduum and to add to it an even deeper meaning than it may already have for us.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful that people all around the world can see that, too. We remember seeing Pope Francis on the steps of St. Peter's Basilica before what many call the miraculous crucifix. I know there was some initial concern that it was damaged in the rain, but fortunately it wasn't. Can you explain to us the significant role that it plays in Easter liturgies?
Yes, well, this is the crucifix of San Marcello. It was housed in the Church of San Marcello and is considered one of those great pieces of art. It was designed by the Sienese school, probably in the 14th or 15th century, and was hanging in a church in 1519 that effectively burned to the ground, but was miraculously spared. Only a few years later, in 1522, it helped Rome overcome a time of severe plague and has been revered for that role ever since. So it was remarkably appropriate that Pope Francis would then use that cross at the Urbi et Orbi. There was some concern because it was caught in the rain. There was a little bit of damage, given its age, from the rain, but the initial reports of severe damage were actually somewhat overstated. And as we saw, for example, in the Holy Thursday Mass, Pope Francis was able to use it once again. And I think it's become a real symbol of the coronavirus pandemic, certainly in Italy and for a lot of Catholics around the world.
Well, Matthew, we don't have a lot of time, but I want to ask you this last question. The Salus Populi Romani icon will also be present during all the liturgies. How has it taken on new symbolism during this coronavirus pandemic?
Well, this is an icon of the Blessed Mother that has a very rich antiquity. Pope Francis visited all of the Salus Populi Romani anytime he goes on a trip. It is normally housed at the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. He used it as a special icon in his Urbi et Orbi. He visited it again It goes all the way back, in fact, to 593 when Pope St. Gregory I used it in a procession in Rome to end a plague then. So just as it was 1,500 years ago, so it is now. We turn to the Blessed Mother for her intercession. And I think this is a beacon of hope, much like the crucifix of San Marcello, something that we can turn to, exactly the same way that we do with the shroud and the crown of thorns, always focusing ourselves on Christ at this moment of darkness for so many Catholics.
Matthew, thank you so much for your insight and for your time today. Dr. Matthew Bunson, Executive Editor and Washington Bureau Chief of EWTN News. Thanks again, Matthew.
Be safe.